Hi, everyone. Happy Disability Pride Month. My name is Nico Meyering. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with slicked over blonde hair, large dark glasses, and a blue, white, and orange checkered shirt. I'm seated in front of a blurred background, kind of an orange green. It's my kitchen. I'm honored to be joined today by my friend Mikki. Mikki, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mikki Barry. I am a disability advocate as well as an attorney that works for a very large tech firm. Um, I am mobility and neurodiverse challenged, I would say. I use she, her pronouns. You can't see me, but I will describe myself. I am I would say three-quarter time wheelchair user. Um, I'm a white female, uh, pretty old, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how old. um, and I'm very happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much. Mikki, what does disability pride mean to you?
Well, it's really kind of interesting because this is the first year I was even aware of it,
Mhm.
which is kind of sad because I've been disabled for quite a while. It's a progressive type disability. So I'm becoming aware of a lot more things as time goes on. But for me, I think disability pride is a time to educate not only able bodied people about what a day is like for us, but also to educate other disabled folks about where we are similar, where we're different, and to put across the idea that we aren't one solution fits all. Um, Disability pride also means that I can be proud of who I am. I can show the world that I'm a complete person and not one with like a missing piece because I can't do everything that they can do. I don't have the same abilities I once did, and that's okay. Um, I also think that Disability Pride Month is a time when I can get just a little bit louder and advocate just a little more strongly and hopefully have that message be distributed just a little bit further.
I love it. Yes, we're hoping that the world at large pays a bit more attention to us this month than they do the other 11 months of the year, which is
Yes.
not much.
Yes, I saw a kind of, analogy with pride in
Mm.
that, I saw a little pie chart, and the pie chart represented the year, and there was the little carve out for June Pride Month, and everything else was, "Oh, we just don't bother to think about pride during the rest of the time," and I'm really hoping that that isn't the case, for disability or for pride. I mean, we should always be thinking about um, the challenges and the struggles that marginalized people have across the world during every day of our lives instead of just one carved out month.
I love to hear it. I also love what you were saying about pointing out to the general public that disability is not a one size fits all, and there's more things we can do as a society and as individuals to help disabled people belong and fit in, I guess, to use a term. Um, Even before I began doing disability advocacy so much, I wasn't aware of how many accessibility features and options there were. Things like plain language in written material, on the job hunt, getting interview questions ahead of time, as well as the things that you typically might imagine when you say accessibility. So curb cuts, automatic doors, and things like that. It's
Hmm.
definitely a learning process for everyone. Thank
Oh,
you very much.
yeah, definitely. Just to piggyback onto that just a
Mhm.
little bit, there are so many things about the types of disabilities that are out there and the things that people need that having to do a deep dive every time you encounter someone who says, "Gee, I don't know what I can do. I'm having these issues," is challenging. It's hard to find the thing or the things that will help that particular person.
Mhm.
And some of those things, as you mentioned, are extremely understood by the general public, especially for the mobility disabled. You can see that the person cannot get up onto a curb. You can see that the person cannot get into a door. But we have to remember that there are so many people with invisible disabilities that you can't see their struggle. And it may come out in different ways that a lot of folks may misinterpret as someone being arrogant or someone being out of touch or someone just not paying attention. And we have to understand that disabilities come in all different shapes and sizes, and we can't jump to a conclusion that deprecates what this person is trying to do or what they mean when they're exhibiting some sort of a reaction to their own disability.
That's entirely valid. Absolutely. I 100% agree. Mickey, what are some lessons, let's say, that being disabled has taught you?
Oh my goodness. Do we have 5 or 6 hours I could start to get into? There is so much.
Mhm.
And given that my disability has been progressive
Right.
and I spent the vast majority of my life um, with just the neuro component and not the physical component, there's so much that I didn't know and so much that I learned and so many misconceptions.
Mhm.
And I think possibly the biggest one was I thought that the government took care of disabled people. I thought that, you get a letter from your doctor that says you're disabled and the government will take care of you. No,
Mhm.
no, it doesn't work that way at all. Um, I thought also that with the ADA that a lot of the battle for physical disability had been won and we were cool. Everything was fine. Um, and then as I got more and more disabled, I learned that the discrimination is just continuing. There are thousands of lawsuits regarding accessibility. There are thousands of facilities that are not even ADA compliant, and ADA is the floor. It's not the ceiling. It's the minimum of what people should be doing, and most people have no idea what we face on a daily basis. A quick story that very recently happened. A friend of mine loves to travel and is, thank goodness, ambulatory enough to not have to withhold food and water from herself to survive an airline flight. Because,
Mhm.
as we all know, bathrooms on aircraft are not accessible. She's a manual wheelchair user, but she can walk short distances, similar to me. Um, I didn't know the ADA doesn't cover airlines at all.
Mhm.
That would instead be, dealt with by the Air Carrier Access Act, the ACAA, and that law requires that manual wheelchairs that fit in the first class coat closet be stored there, in all aircraft that have them. Now, the pushback that you get as a wheelchair user when you ask for your chair to be stowed on the aircraft is incredible.
Mhm.
And she was extremely tired. I mean, she had gone through an entire trip. She was trying to come home. Um, they took her chair away from her, and she was freaking out, obviously, because it's not a good thing. And airlines, I don't know if people are aware, but airlines damage or destroy 29 wheelchairs every day. So that's 29 people who are stuck in an airport unable to leave because most of them have, disabilities that make it impossible.
Yes.
So that chair was taken away from her. They didn't follow the ACAA. It was a US carrier in Amsterdam, but it was a US carrier. And it was left at the gate at Schiphol for over 24 hours. It was never put on the aircraft. Then it was moved to a luggage graveyard with tens of thousands of other bags because if you've seen the news, the European airlines and airports are completely backed up with baggage.
Mhm.
It's almost impossible. So it took almost a week to get her chair back. And the only reason we got it back is being extremely loud on social media, you know, shaming the airlines and all of that, which wasn't working. We were given the runaround. I was on hold with one airline for over 15 hours waiting
Mhm.
to try to get this done. And the only way that we got it back was contacting an advocacy group in Europe that actually put enough pressure on them because they had sued the airline before, putting enough pressure on them to send a team to go and look for this wheelchair. Found it, got it back to us. Now, and this is a wheelchair that had air tags installed on it, so we knew where it was every minute.
Mhm.
We knew exactly where it was, but still we couldn't get any help. Why this is really important is because wheelchair users in general use custom chairs, and those custom chairs are fit to your body. If you don't have your custom chair, pressure sores can develop. And given that most wheelchair users and a lot of disabled people have immune system compromise, any pressure sore can turn into sepsis and can kill you. And in fact, last year, a disability advocate died after her chair was destroyed and she was forced to use a rental.
Yes.
Those are, yeah, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And ironically, she had just testified before Congress on disability and accessibility. And on her way home, they destroyed her $40,000 custom built chair. Um, it's awful. The Department of Transportation is having hearings on these matters and trying to hold the airlines to account. But these are things that I never knew before and lessons that I have unfortunately learned.
I'm so sorry to hear of all of these struggles. It's a complete travesty. But you're right. Disabled people have these almost daily injustices swept under the rug or ignored or kind of pushed to the side. A 15-hour hold time, that, I don't know, I can't even imagine that.
It it was bad. And when they finally showed up, it was basically 2 airlines. One was responsible for the ground, um, care
Mhm.
and baggage and all of that, because the flying airline had no people at that particular airport. The people responsible for the baggage kept punting me back to the flying airline,
Mhm.
saying it was their responsibility, but how could it be when they had no people on the ground and they contracted with this other airline to handle all those things?
Oh, geez.
So, me as a lawyer was like, well, what's in your contract? What are they responsible for? We don't have time for you to get hold of your general counsel and their general counsel and everybody get together and kumbaya over the contract. We don't have time for that. We need this chair back now.
Mhm.
It was, do you understand this person can't leave the house? She can't go to appointments. She can't, do anything without her chair. Please do something for us. And we were all very polite about the whole thing rather than, you horrible people, what are you thinking? But still, we had to get an outside advocacy group to get a wheelchair back, which should never have been treated as baggage in the first place.
Absolutely. And that's just one wheelchair out of the 29 destroyed or damaged every day.
Every day. We're lucky that she
Mhm.
got it back. We're lucky that it wasn't damaged. But, think about the stress that it causes anyone who wants to travel.
Mhm.
And I have to travel for business quite a bit. And every time it's a struggle, even with a letter from the aeromedical team on one of the airlines that said, you guys have got to put this in the coat closet. And the reason, um, the flight attendants like to use the coat closet to stow their own personal items.
Oh, okay. See, I
Yes.
hadn't known that.
And there is a sticker next time you fly. Take a look as you pass the first class coat closet, unless you're lucky enough to get bumped up to first class. Yay. There's a sticker on there that says wheelchairs take priority.
Mhm.
Yet the flight attendants will argue, the gate attendants will argue, and it just adds to the stress of travel, which is already extremely difficult for disabled people.
That's true. Travel is always more stressful for disabled people.
Hmm.
I want to kind of flip this question on its head and ask you, what have you had to unlearn? What are some lessons you've unlearned as part of your disabled journey?
Oh, a lot. You know, being as I was not born disabled, I had a completely different perspective
Mhm.
in that, I would be frustrated at the time that it took for a wheelchair user, for example, to get on a bus, or a person with cognitive disability that I might be behind at a checkout, or, trying to return an item or something like that. I would, you know, be frustrated inside. I mean, I certainly didn't, start yelling or being aggressive towards the person, but
Mhm.
I would feel a certain amount of frustration and the, what comes to mind is the why should they get special privileges? They
Oh,
don't.
yes.
They don't. And that would cross my mind. And oh, I'm in a hurry and blah, blah, blah. I didn't see or think about how people would have to cope, for example, if the elevator at the metro wasn't working, and you're mobility disabled and you've got a walker or you've got something else and you're supposed to use the escalator. How do you do that? How do
Mhm.
you do that with your seeing eye dog? How do you do that, with your wheelchair? I just didn't think about it and, would just gloss over all of it. And, when folks would ask for more money to improve these places, I would think things like, well, how many people with disabilities actually need to use the metro? Well, gee, wake up, Mickey, a
Mhm.
lot. um, it was something I didn't understand, and I also had to learn a lot of language.
Yeah.
Like, for example, confined to a wheelchair. This
Okay.
person
Yeah.
is confined to a wheelchair. My wheelchair is my freedom. I'm not confined to it. I love it. It's a part of me. It's a wonderful thing that without, I couldn't go to a science fiction convention. I couldn't go through an airport. I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I can do now. So, for me, it's wings. Or,
Mhm.
yeah, another language issue, suffering from a disability.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I'm not suffering. I mean, sure, I wish there was a magic wand and I could do cartwheels and handsprings again, but I'm not suffering from it so long as people don't make me suffer from it. So there were a lot of preconceptions that, I thought about the disabled that I really had to unlearn and start to look at the community for what it is, the diversity within our community, the beauty within our community. Um, it was just something that didn't cross my mind that people could be disabled and productive and happy and have a life and enjoy that life.
Mhm. Yeah, that is something that I've noticed as well. So when I speak to able-bodied people about my condition or experiences that I have, sometimes I get expressions of disbelief, such as, "Oh, I never knew it was that difficult." Or the old standby, "If I was you, I don't know, kill myself. I would choose
Oh gosh.
euthanasia. I would not know what to do. Or even just something a bit more like serious. For example, the phrase, wow, that sounds so horrible. Um, yeah, being disabled is not great all the time, but I mean, it's not horrible. I can think of a few other scenarios that might be horrible, like losing everything I have in a house fire. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing the death of my loved ones. That's horrible. But ultimately, my disabled life is markedly not horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's something that a lot of people don't understand or will give you the knee-jerk reaction. I mean, saying something like, "I would kill myself." Oh my goodness, what a message that sends
Mhm.
to you and to everyone who is disabled. I would just kill myself. My goodness. How horrible. That is
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, underscore horrible there.
It makes me glad that those people don't have a disability, or at least don't have a disability yet. Um, our relationship with our bodies is a hallmark of being human. And that relationship we have with our bodies also changes over time. So
Mhm.
who can say what the future holds?
Very well said.
Thank you. And very well said yourself as well. Mickey, finally, what is one thing you want able bodied people to know about being disabled?
Oh, I so wish that able-bodied people could experience what we experience just for a day,
Mhm.
you know, a day in the life type thing. But, more broadly, I would like them to understand that we matter. We're not going away, despite largely being left behind by this whole push of post-pandemic mindset. I
Mhm.
mean, we're between March and July of this year, for example, 3/5 of COVID-related deaths in England and Wales were deaths of disabled people.
Mhm.
We are impacted by this a lot more than a lot of other folks, yet we're being pressured by our employers, our families, our friends to just get over it, stop masking, everything's fine. We're done with this. We're not.
Mhm.
BA5 is just ramping up. It's bad. And this callous attitude towards us and towards this horrible danger that is out there ironically means we're going to have a lot more company in the disabled community.
Mhm.
And in fact, with long COVID, we can expect thousands upon thousands more people to become disabled. And, what we're seeing right now with tapped healthcare facilities and tapped healthcare workers who are exhausted is the tip of the iceberg because you've got folks that are not going to make it and their journey is done. Their need for medical facilities and medical care is finished. It's done. But long-term care for these people who will become disabled is expensive.
Yes.
It's not only in terms of money, but in terms of the people that we're going to have to train in order to help these folks. It's going to cost society untold billions. And everyone will know one, if not more, disabled people, many of whom are going to be their family members. So we're going to be seeing that horror, for want of a better word, coming into play. I'd also like them to know that SSI payments, for example, are not easy to get.
Right.
And if you do manage to get them, they're below the poverty level in this country. So able-bodied people that think, "Oh yeah, why do you need to work anyway? Why don't you just go on SSI?" And for those who may not know, is a Social Security payment to folks who are disabled. It's tiny, and a lot of folks I know can't afford rent in any kind of an area that has accessibility, which
Mhm.
is really putting issue on top of issue there. Um, People may also not know that those SSI payments can be taken away from you if you get married.
That's true.
Yeah. They also don't know that it's legal to pay disabled people less than minimum wage.
Hmm.
They also, one of the things that really gets me is a lot of able-bodied people think that accessibility means a caregiver doing things for you.
Hmm.
It, instead of me being able to do it for myself as I am um, you know, a functioning adult. I may not be able to do all of the physical things other people can do, but don't tell me that I should go get someone to do something for me. It's not easy. It's, and it demeans me. It makes me feel as if I'm a child. Um, Business owners across this country are required to provide reasonable accommodation to us. Finding a caregiver to do things for us is not a reasonable accommodation, whether that be in the workplace or whether that be retail shopping or having access to um, government buildings or access to any of the benefits like voting or any of the other things that we as members of a society need.
Hmm.
And the last thing I'd really like them to think about is that disability is a part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've got a big push these days for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But you're not inclusive if, you're not including the disabled. Our community is made up of people from every part of life,
Hmm.
every ethnicity, every sexual orientation, every religion, national origin, age, veteran status. You think of it, you think of the marginalized population, they're all part of us.
Hmm.
There are disabled people from all of those walks of life. They all need to be included. They're all part of diversity and they all deserve equity.
You make several good points. 1 out of 4 adults in America has a disability. So, since we're 25% of the population, every issue is a disability issue.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki,
Agree.
thank you so much for your time today. As we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to promote any social media accounts, if that's your thing, or even just to give yourself a chance to brag on an accomplishment or anything. This is your soapbox.
A soapbox. What am I going to do with it? My goodness. And I'm sure my soapbox has a ramp so I can get on top
Of
of
course, a
it.
fully accessible soapbox.
Hooray. Well, social media, I'm Mikki Barry on LinkedIn. I'm Mikki Barry uh, on Twitter. I'm Mikki Barry on Facebook. And I also I stream games. I'm one of these crazy gamers from way back. So I'm on Twitch as Minion of Discord. And I've got 2 different tracks on my streams. One is different games like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, Pokemon, things like that. The other is political. So if you go and look me up on Twitch and you see politics, feel free to jump in, but know that I'm going to be extremely opinionated and and I love talking to folks that have different opinions. I think that's great as long as they're respectful. And I try to debate with folks in a constructive manner, but know that you're going to need a seatbelt for your chair because that's how I roll, literally.
Mickey, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Have a fantastic rest of your day.
Great, you too, and thank you for having me.
Of course.